My name is John. I work for a certain publishing company as a sidekick. I'm turning 40 this year and still haven't found a partner. That's not to say I've never dated, though. In college, I had one. We got together at a book group and started dating after realizing how much we both loved the same novelist. Since we worked close to one another after graduation, we continued to be close. We never got into arguments. Our bond was as strong as it had ever been. I used to believe that I wanted us to remain this close forever and perhaps even wed in the future. It seems that I wasn't the only one who thought that. Our meetings became less in number as she became closer to a senior colleague at her job. She ended our relationship by the time I was in my second year of work. Later on, a friend of mine revealed to me that she had fallen in love with a dashing executive at the ID firm where she worked, a man whose appearance and salary were far superior to mine. Men are ultimately chosen by women based on their appearance and financial status. I never got a girlfriend again after losing my self-confidence. I haven't even remotely expressed interest in ladies in my life. Nonetheless, I enjoyed the company of my coworkers and was really content with the connections I had at work. It has been more than 10 years since I left my prior work in my mid-20s and joined this company in the middle. It's easy for me to fill in for my less experienced colleagues when they make a mistake, even if I don't hold a prominent position. I used to occasionally go out for drinks after work and listen to my coworkers' grievances while giving them advice. They therefore truly depended on me. He then came up to me one day, the day after I had assisted in covering up an error for a coworker, and said, "We've got news. Have you heard? A young woman will be joining us from headquarters as a new employee." I put both of my hands lightly on my colleague's shoulders as he became giddy over a young woman and murmured, "Easy there, calm down." Shortly after he regained his breathing, our boss and the aforementioned young lady entered the office. "Starting today, Surin will be the manager of this division," she stated. "My name is Catherine. It's nice to meet you, everyone." The ovation grew louder when she nodded slightly and acknowledged them. As the applause continued, my subordinate colleague whispered to me, "I heard Catherine used to be a department head at headquarters." It struck me when I heard that. Impressive for someone so young. My employer later confirmed that the reports were accurate by telling me the same thing. Given her history of ascending to a supervisory role at such a young age, she put in even more effort than the gossip implied, completing assignments quickly and demonstrating her abilities. She became my superior despite being younger. She was amiable and incredibly skilled, fitting right in with our department right away. There was one thing, though, that bothered me. Frequently, I sensed her stare from her far-off desk. It was an inexplicable gaze rather than a flirty or contemptuous one. I initially assumed she was perplexed by me because I'm a middle-aged man who still plays a supporting role. She came to my desk one day, a few days into this, and asked if I could get something ready for her by the next afternoon. She was really capable, so I assumed she could complete it more quickly on her own. But after realizing the basic information she required, I chose to assist her because of her efficiency and the fact that I knew she must be overworked. I told her, "I can finish this today. When it's ready, I'll bring it over." She remained still as I returned my attention to my computer. She had a shocked expression on her face and her mouth was open when I looked up. I said, "What's wrong?" She appeared to awaken and utter, "Oh, nothing." "I'm grateful," she said, eventually returning to her desk. As agreed upon, I turned in the finished paper shortly before work ended that day. She glanced from the document to me and back again, seeming even more astonished than before. I steeled myself, fearing she would tell me I wasn't doing a good enough job. She finally managed to say, "Amazing," as her first word. She went on, "Who exactly are you?" Then, it seems that my presentation was so flawless and sophisticated that it surprised her. Observing the situation, a younger colleague was pretty intrigued and was ready to approach me when another colleague sensed the tension between us and took the younger colleague's hand, saying, "We'll be heading out now," and walked out of the office. I met her eyes after waving them off and said, "Just a sideline employee, really." However, as she looked up at me with a perplexed expression, she blurted out, "No offense, but this French document isn't something you can just translate. Even our headquarters staff finds it complicated, but you've put it together so well. It's astounding." I explained, "In actuality, I studied abroad for a year during college," while she kept looking at the paper and then at me in shock. I devoted all of my study time to learning French. During that period, interacting with native speakers helped me become even more proficient. She looked shocked, but her face didn't change when I explained. "I understand that you speak French. However, there is information outside of French in this document. It takes time for an average employee to translate non-French text. However, you completed it so swiftly. How many languages are you able to understand?" I only gave a brief response, about 5, stating the obvious. She appeared even more shocked at my quick answer, as though she had seen a ghost. She held her head in surprise and remarked, "I can't believe someone of your caliber isn't in a top position here or at the headquarters." It felt like a transgression to simply tell the truth and have that kind of response. There was an uncomfortable silence. She paused for a moment, then smiled at me, as though letting go of the stress. She then started to tell me the real reason she had asked for the document. "To tell the truth, your work ethic has amazed me since the day I started here. John, it wouldn't be shocking if you were making it at our headquarters, considering your age and the caliber of your job. I've always been curious about why. So that I could evaluate your skills, I had you work on this complicated document. John, from what I've heard, you quit your last job, came to work for this company in the middle, and have been working in a low-key capacity for more than 10 years. Do you not want to move up the corporate ladder in the future?" I wondered if my coworkers felt the same way about me when she told me that. However, I wasn't all that interested in things like fancy titles or promotions. She chuckled at this and replied, "You're an interesting guy." The jobs that were assigned to me were much harder after that day. She invited me to go with her to a meeting at the headquarters later on. I reluctantly accepted and made my way to the headquarters. I was a little anxious because it was my first trip to the corporate office since my mid-career interview. The topic of discussion at the meeting was an upcoming youth business book. I had assumed before the meeting began that I would simply attend and keep quiet. But once it started, I was unable to stop thinking about it. Before I knew it, I was making several suggestions, and the majority of the headquarters staff concurred, their expressions expressing surprise. I was called into the CEO's office following the meeting, as he was also in attendance. Catherine and I went. Catherine was correct, after all. "John, you're incredibly gifted. Talent like yours shouldn't be wasted. I would really like you to come work with our editing team at the main office and put all of your skills to use." Startled by this unexpected invitation, I uttered, "Me? Really?" I was interrupted by the CEO, who covered my hands with his own and whispered, "I'm counting on you." The CEO put so much effort into the handshake that I felt I couldn't let him down, even if I still wanted to decline. I vowed to myself that I would try my hardest, and then said, "Understood." Not long after, I was moved to the editorial division. Everyone was curious as to why Catherine, who was so capable, had been moved from headquarters to my former office. However, this time, I got the exact opposite reaction: skepticism and coldness. Is this elderly man currently being moved to the headquarters? All these time, wasn't he just your average office worker? Is he willing to participate? I heard similar remarks a lot when I initially transferred, but I didn't let it depress me. In order to satisfy Catherine and the CEO, I had to produce results here. I worked nonstop after that, oblivious to the looks and hushes. The effort was worthwhile. After a while, even the coworkers who had previously disregarded me started to acknowledge my contributions. In my former role, I had never had the sense of fulfillment that I have now in this setting. I've come to enjoy this place of work. One day, I was eating lunch at my desk at the office after acclimating to my new role. Catherine sent me an email while I was sitting at my desk eating lunch. Want to go out for drinks after work today? Upon reflection, I realized that I hadn't really spent much time with Catherine outside of work-related gatherings since I moved to the headquarters. I thought it would be appropriate to go as a way of showing thanks since I felt like I owed a lot for how far I'd gone. Catherine was already sipping her drink when I got to the assigned bar. When Catherine saw me, she waved her hand and displayed a carefree look she would never display at work. The CEO and a few coworkers have informed me, "John, it seems like you're doing fantastically." Actually, not really. I'm only now starting to get used to the work and atmosphere of the office. It's been hectic each day. Following their mutual update, she said, "May I ask you one question?" With a somewhat different, more serious expression than before, she asked. I merely nodded in answer, not saying anything. "John, you are so talented. Why were you put in such a backbench position?" I'm not a heavy drinker, so after just half a mug of beer, I was already tipsy. Perhaps as a result, I began telling a story to my coworkers that I had never told any of them before. On my resume that I submitted to this company, I listed a different university even though I actually graduated from Harvard. Although I was unable to see her face, I might assume that she was astonished in the same way that she had been when she quickly understood a difficult material. I ignored her response and carried on with my tale. When I started working for my former employer more than 10 years ago, I was a dynamo from the beginning. My goal was to become an elite member of the corporate ladder. Not only did I possess the drive, but I excelled beyond my peers' expectations. My coworkers shared my same level of drive for a while. Although each day was demanding and competitive, it felt satisfying. But eventually, I started to notice jealousy coming from my peers. They would remark things like, "Of course, he can do it," before I realized it. He graduated from Harvard, and I found myself accepting their work as though they were doing it to spite me. I'd eventually experienced depression as a result of the mental strain. Before I knew it, I had resigned from my position. Because of my Harvard education, I was held in such high regard and assumed to be capable of handling anything. I started to question whether it would be less stressful to act less capable. I lied on my resume and claimed to be a Harvard graduate for this reason. After telling her my story, I turned to face her. I was relieved that she seems more interested than I had anticipated. That seems difficult. Now, I sort of get it. To be honest, it was simple at first to act incompetent and marginalize employees at this organization. But I could have coasted till retirement without ever feeling this fulfilled if I hadn't met you. When I moved to our headquarters, I didn't feel at home at first, but now I truly appreciate my coworkers and the atmosphere. I am very grateful to you, Catherine. I'm really grateful to you. Being able to show my thanks was one of the main reasons I came here today, and it felt good to do so. She appeared a little shy and remarked, "Oh, please, I didn't do much." Her expression suggested that she was grateful for the praise. We spoke for a little while more until she abruptly realized, "Oh, right. I should have invited you here today because I want you to meet someone. John. It appears that this person is a professor and, like myself, a graduate of Harvard. He is a well-known professor in the publishing industry. Therefore, I've heard that his books will undoubtedly become bestsellers. He can be a little tough and unyielding, but if it's you, perhaps he'll listen." Catherine and I went to see the professor a few days later. Catherine opened the door and said, "Hello." "You again." The professor, who was sitting and deeply immersed in a newspaper, asked with a frustrated grimace. "Today, I'd like to introduce someone," Catherine stated. She prodded me forward with a forceful push from behind. "Hello, I'm John from Tay Publishing. Please meet me." John attended Harvard, but he put another college on his resume, and he was fired from his work until recently for disclosing my background. It caused me to immediately bend my head in shock and humiliation. The professor's response, though, was unexpected. "Isn't that interesting now?" he said, bursting into a happy giggle. "Well, let's hear your side of the story, at least. Did you come to talk about publishing?" Catherine had warned me about his difficult and stubborn personality, so I was on the lookout. But now that the ice had melted, I felt relieved. At the professor's suggestion, Catherine and I sat down across the table from him. I was worried that he would delve into technical subjects that I would not be able to address. But our chat stayed informal. We lost track of time as we talked about me, about Catherine, and briefly about the publishing business. The professor had clearly been more receptive to me. "Dude, John, you're not just smart, you're entertaining. I would think about publishing with your agency if you were the chief editor," the professor remarked. "Really?" "Yes, but the goal here is a bestseller if we're doing this right. Please put your best effort forward. I don't want to sacrifice the content. I'm depending on you, John." I'd gained his favor with that. As Catherine had planned, we were able to talk about publishing. "John, we succeeded. Even that unyielding professor was touched by your persuasiveness," I remarked modestly. "It wasn't just me." I said, "I didn't do anything, but I felt happy inside like never before. It was unbelievable to me that I would get to collaborate with someone as prestigious as the professor. Just thinking about it made me eager for every day. The professor and I wrote a business book for young adults, and it was a huge hit. I worked even harder since I was sure that with the professor, we might create future masterpieces. It was never a pointless endeavor. The books that I and the professor published continued to make the bestseller list, and I was much more visible in the editing department than I had been in the past. And I don't just mean that it had become more well-known. It's impossible for me to compare the sense of fulfillment I had to my prior employment or to the days when I was simply another face in the crowd. Later on, Catherine and I moved from being coworkers to a romantic connection. We recently got married and were blessed with a stunning daughter. Before I met Catherine and the professor, my life was just coasting through typical days till retirement. After that, things changed dramatically. Because of my excellence, I detested my job and once handed up the title of Harvard graduate, something I had worked so hard to obtain. But it was interactions with people that could be considered fate that allowed me to change. I was merely fortunate to come across something important. However, I want to encourage anyone who wants to improve their current circumstances to not be afraid of change. Do something. If you wait for an opportunity, you might not discover it in your lifetime, or you might only get it when you are 40. Well, it's always better to seize opportunities early. 40 isn't too late. You can live longer and more meaningful days if you take advantage of opportunities as they arise. I would want to pose this question to individuals who are happy with their current situation. Is that really the best you can do? I can't deny that the professor has helped me establish a reputation as an editor with a track record of blockbusters. However, I've given my all to my work day and nights since the professor informed me he liked it. I'm glad to state that because I put my all into every book, even with their little success, my modest amount of hard work has undoubtedly helped those bestsellers. So stop and think for a moment. If you believe that you are not at your limit and that your current circumstances are indeed the result of giving it your all, then I implore you to take immediate action. Work is always rewarded in some fashion. If a few interactions can significantly alter my life, even after fabricating my education to become a sidelined employee, then yours can too. That's it. You will be sacked if you are unable to comply with my directives. I was back at head office for the first time in 2 years after finishing a training program abroad. To introduce our products, I went to a business meeting with Mr. Irwin, the president of the company. Regretfully, the transaction failed. Mr. Irwin held me responsible for the failure. It's because you disregarded my directions and continued talking about your typical pipe fantasies instead. We lost the deal because of this. I was dismissed without warning. Then I received a call, though. It came from a stunning young woman who works for one of our clients. "You are on my mind constantly. Would you be able to work for us? What does a $500,000 yearly income sound like?" The entire business would eventually be rocked by just one call. I stood anxiously in front of Ken Drive Engineering's headquarters building as the sun started to rise. 2 years have passed. I had finally made it back to the main office after completing my training in Germany. I inhaled deeply before entering through the automated glass doors. I recognized the smell as soon as I walked into the lobby, a special blend of coffee and machine oil. It evoked recollections instantly. I couldn't help but think of my modest origins. Working in a renowned office like this had long looked like an impossible ambition for someone from a low-income background. Every day, my parents, who worked in factories, battled to make ends meet. I grew up in a small, outdated apartment in a public housing complex with my siblings. I wore hand-me-downs and utilized worn textbooks at school, while my peers showed off the newest toys and outfits. I threw myself into my imagination to get away from that reality. I read a ton of books and became enamored with science fiction books and inventor biographies. Stories about people who overcame poverty to invent innovations that revolutionized the world particularly enthralled me. I was greatly influenced by inventors such as Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. I vowed to myself, someday I'll create something that changes the world too. The majority of my free time was devoted to brainstorming unusual ideas. I envisioned audacious and daring creations, disregarding the limitations of reality. My so-called dreamy personality was gradually formed by this habit. I found hope in clinging to dreams that went beyond those boundaries because I was aware of how brutal reality could be. I now had the opportunity to realize those aspirations. I was going to create a game-changing engine in this company. "Welcome back, Ryan," said the receptionist, grinning broadly. I couldn't help but smile back. "Thank you. It's good to be back." I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 5th floor, where the development department was located. When the doors opened, familiar faces immediately welcomed me with cheerful voices. Everyone was smiling. "Ryan, welcome back. We've been waiting for you." "Hey, everyone. Thanks for the warm welcome," I replied, scratching my head awkwardly as the floor erupted in laughter. "How was your training in Germany?" "It was a great learning experience. I made some exciting discoveries, especially in designing motors for electric vehicles. There's potential to achieve efficiency that defies conventional wisdom." Hearing this, the eyes of the engineers around me lit up. "Wow, that's incredible, Ryan. You've always amazed us with your insights, and it seems you're at it again." No, I'm still learning. But I hope we can all work together to develop the most advanced engines in the world," I said to my colleagues, heading toward my desk. The layout was exactly the same as 2 years ago. However, the equipment around me seemed to have been upgraded. On my desk, there was a piece of paper that read, "Welcome back," with messages from everyone in the development department. I couldn't help but feel touched. "All right, time to give it my all," I said to myself, renewing my determination as I powered on my computer. The screen lit up brightly. And then it happened. Well, the slacker's finally back." A cold voice spoke from behind me. I turned around to see none other than Kenneth Irwin, the company president, and my former best friend. His eyes were icy, evaluating me as if I were a mere asset. The atmosphere in the room instantly froze. "Long time no see, Kenneth," I greeted him in a calm tone. But Kenneth simply scoffed at me. "Now that you're back, make sure you work hard enough to recover the money we invested in your training. Stop chasing dreams for once." "I get it, Kenneth. I'll give it everything I've got. But I'm not giving up on my dreams," I replied, meeting his gaze head-on. For a moment, I thought I saw hesitation flash in his eyes. But it quickly disappeared as Kenneth walked away. Concerned looks were directed at me from the others. Everyone knew we had once been close friends, and now they knew things weren't the same between us. Don't worry, everyone. Let's give it our all together, I said with a smile, trying to ease their worries. Though I felt conflicted inside, the rift between me and my old friend was undeniable. But I didn't want anyone else to worry about it. After the others returned to their work, I turned back to my computer. Yet my mind couldn't help but wander to the past I shared with Kenneth. I met Kenneth in college. We were both in the engineering department and shared a passion for developing car engines, so becoming friends was inevitable. On the rooftop of the engineering building, bathed in the light of the setting sun, we often talked about the future. Kenneth, I've come up with another world-changing engine. It runs on air as fuel. No emissions at all. In fact, the more it runs, the cleaner the air gets. It could even work in space or underwater. What do you think? Kenneth would give me a look that was half exasperated, half intrigued. Come on, Ryan. That completely defies the laws of physics. This isn't a sci-fi novel. No, it's totally possible. No one's thought of it yet, that's all. With this engine, we could solve environmental problems. Humanity would be free to travel from the ends of the Earth to the edges of the universe. It's a wonderful dream. I'll give you that. But big things like that don't just happen overnight. You need to start with the basics. Whenever I went off on a passionate tangent, Kenneth would calmly ground me in reality. Maybe because of my poor upbringing, I always had a habit of dreaming up things that seemed impossible. I was often mocked for being such a dreamer. But Kenneth was different. When people laughed at me, Kenneth would defend me, saying, "Sure, Ryan's dreams might sound too big or unrealistic. But remember, most of the groundbreaking inventions or discoveries in history were laughed at in the beginning. When the Wright brothers said humans could fly, everyone probably thought it was a joke. Ryan has a passion and creativity that we don't. Instead of mocking his dreams, why not chase your own?" Kenneth came from a wealthy family and had a sharp eye for reality. His pragmatism and social skills were things I lacked. On the other hand, my passion and technical expertise were things Kenneth didn't possess. That's why we believed we were the perfect team. We complemented each other's weaknesses, united in the pursuit of a big dream. At least, that's what we had promised each other. After graduating from college, we didn't hesitate. We started a company together. The name Ken Drive Engineering embodied our dreams and passion. It was a coined term that combined Ken from Kenneth's name and drive, representing my drive and energy. It also symbolized our ambition to bring new energy to the engine industry, combining Kenneth's business acumen with my technical skills. At first, things went smoothly. We built a solid track record improving existing engine designs, and the company gradually grew. Finally, we took the first step toward our dream, developing a groundbreaking new engine. This is it, Kenneth. With this engine, we can improve fuel efficiency by over 50%, and emissions are almost zero. I said excitedly, showing him the blueprint. His eyes sparkled with excitement. That's amazing, Ryan. This could revolutionize the industry. But reality wasn't so kind. Creating the prototype proved challenging, and the budget kept ballooning. Although the completed prototype showed innovative performance, it had durability issues. Just a little more time, Kenneth. I'll perfect it for sure, I pleaded, pouring my heart into the project. But the company's finances were spiraling downward. Ryan, it's time to give up, Kenneth said one day, his eyes filled with exhaustion. What are you talking about? If we give up now, our dream. This company will go under if we keep going like this. Face reality, Kenneth shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. The sharp sound startled me for a moment. We need to change course. The strength of our company lies in improving existing engines. We should focus on securing more deals with major automakers and stabilizing the company. That's what matters now, he continued. But our dream is to create a revolutionary new engine. I know. I don't want to get it up either. But now's the time for patience. We need to keep the company alive so we can revisit that dream later. Right now, we have to make practical decisions, Ryan. We argued fiercely. It was our first major fight. Kenneth's words were logical and convincing, but my heart refused to accept them. In the end, the new engine project was shelved, and we shifted our focus to improving existing products. The company managed to survive, but a rift formed between Kenneth and me. I felt powerless and realized how much I still had to learn. That's when I volunteered for the training program in Germany. 2 years passed. I returned with new knowledge and skills, determined to pick up where we left off. But my relationship with Kenneth had not healed. Even so, I hadn't given up. I was determined to make our dream come true, and I would restore my bond with Kenneth. With that resolve, I turned my focus to the work in front of me. As the morning sun reflected brightly off the skyscrapers, Kenneth and I entered the headquarters of Heiress Corporation. Heiress Corporation was one of Japan's leading comprehensive automakers. With over a century of history, it had earned global recognition. The company was especially known for its heavy investment in environmental technology, leading the industry in next-generation eco-friendly vehicles. Just before the elevator reached the top floor, Kenneth firmly grabbed my shoulder. "Listen, Ryan. Today's negotiation must succeed," he said, his eyes dead serious. I nodded slightly, unsure but willing. "Yeah, I know. I'll give it everything I've got." "No, you don't get it. The focus today is on our existing engine models. Keep your new ideas to yourself for now." "But," I stammered, "just listen. The survival of the company depends on this. You handle the technical explanations, but stick to the script. Focus only on the strengths of our existing products. Whatever it takes, close this deal and contribute to the company," Kenneth said firmly. I was at a loss for words. It was true that our existing products had a proven track record and were the safer option. But what about our dream? "Do you understand?" Kenneth's voice broke through my thoughts. "Yeah," I replied reluctantly. Only then did Kenneth release his grip on my shoulder. The elevator doors opened. We both took a deep breath and headed to the conference room. As we opened the door, a strikingly beautiful woman stood waiting for us. She had long black hair and a poised demeanor. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence. I couldn't help but catch my breath. "Thank you for coming. I'm Olivia, the head of development at Heiress Corporation," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. I felt my heartbeat quicken. "Thank you for having us." "I'm Kenneth Irwin from Ken Drive Engineering," Kenneth said, stepping forward to introduce himself. I hurried to follow suit. "I'm Ryan, also from Ken Drive Engineering. Pleased to meet you," I stammered, feeling my face flush with heat. Olivia smiled kindly. "Likewise, it's a pleasure to meet you. Now, could you please share more details about your product?" As everyone took their seats, I took a deep breath and opened my laptop with slightly trembling hands. As I prepared the presentation, I tried to steady my unsettled emotions. "Let me introduce our latest engine," I began, projecting the first slide onto the screen. "Our flagship product, the GT2000 series, achieves a balance between fuel efficiency and power. Compared to previous models, it improves fuel efficiency by 15% and increases maximum output by 5%. Olivia listened intently, her expression serious. Every time I felt her sharp gaze, my heart would race. The urge to discuss our new technology bubbled within me, but I remembered Kenneth's warning and restrained myself. This graph highlights the performance improvements, particularly in mid to low speed ranges. Additionally, the engine has demonstrated high reliability, with only a 2% performance degradation after 100 hours of continuous operation. The GT2000 combines high efficiency, power, and reliability, making it a next-generation flagship engine. When I finished, I noticed a faint expression of dissatisfaction on Olivia's face. She leaned forward slightly, arms crossed, and asked, "Ryan, the improvements in the GT2000 are impressive, but isn't there a more innovative application for this technology?" Her question struck a chord within me. Kenneth's instructions faded into the background as I took a deep breath and began to speak. "Actually, we've been developing a revolutionary new engine technology," I said, unable to contain my excitement. "Could you elaborate?" Olivia asked, her curiosity evident. I couldn't hold back. I launched into my explanation. "This engine fundamentally redefines conventional concepts. It improves fuel efficiency by over 50% and reduces emissions to nearly zero. Moreover, it is highly compatible with renewable energy sources. It can efficiently convert solar and wind-generated electricity into driving power, enabling completely clean operation without relying on traditional batteries. It's a unique approach, distinct from pure electric vehicles." I could see the sparkle in Olivia's eyes grow brighter. Encouraged, I continued with even more enthusiasm. "Additionally, we've succeeded in miniaturizing the engine. It's 40% smaller and 35% lighter than traditional engines, significantly increasing design flexibility for vehicle manufacturers. This allows for a seamless integration of aerodynamics and aesthetics, further enhancing fuel efficiency." As I caught my breath, I watched Olivia's reaction. Her face clearly showed intrigue and anticipation. Just as she was about to speak, Kenneth cleared his throat, cutting in. "Excuse me. Regarding the new technology Ryan mentioned, it hasn't been formally approved as an official development project within our company. At this stage, it remains a personal research endeavor. Unfortunately, it's not aligned with the primary focus of today's proposal. We apologize for the deviation." Kenneth gave me a stern look as he spoke. I was at a loss for words. Olivia appeared slightly perplexed, but quickly regained her calm composure. "I see. I understand the situation. However, I'm very interested in that technology," she said. Kenneth hurriedly added, "For today, we hope you'll consider our existing products. As for the new technology, if your company is interested, we'd be happy to discuss it at a later date." Olivia paused, deep in thought, before nodding gracefully. "Understood. However, I must apologize. We currently have agreements with other companies for similar products, so it's difficult to initiate new transactions at this time." The atmosphere in the room froze. I could see the color drain from Kenneth's face. "I see," he stammered, his voice trembling. Olivia continued apologetically, "I'm very impressed by your company's technological capabilities. In particular, I find the new technology Ryan mentioned extremely intriguing. If the development progresses, I would love to hear from you again." "Understood. Thank you for your time," Kenneth replied, his voice hollow. As we left the conference room, a heavy sense of disappointment weighed on our shoulders. In the elevator, Kenneth suddenly turned to me, his eyes blazing with anger. "This is your fault, Ryan. You ignored my instructions and started rambling about your usual pipe dreams. And that's why we lost the deal." "What are you talking about, Kenneth?" Didn't Olivia clearly explain it? They've already contracted similar products with other companies. It wasn't going to work, I protested. If you had emphasized our product strengths more effectively, they might have chosen us instead. That's it. I've had enough. If you can't follow my orders, you're fired. I stared at him in shock. Are you serious, Kenneth? Had you forgotten our promise to create an engine that would change the world together? Promise? Wake up. You can't run a company on fantasies. There's no such thing as an engine that can change the world. Stop chasing dreams and face reality. Kenneth shouted, his voice rising. I tried to respond, but at that moment, the elevator arrived on the ground floor and the doors opened. Kenneth stepped out without looking back, his shoulders trembling with anger. I stood there frozen, replaying his words in my mind. The words of my once best friend cut into me like a blade. Anger began to rise within me. Fine. I'll quit. I never thought you'd turn into someone like this. I yelled as I stepped out of the elevator. Kenneth didn't respond. He didn't even look back. Was this really the end of our relationship? The thought filled me with a mix of sadness and fury. The next morning, when I arrived at the office with my resignation letter in hand, the atmosphere was heavy and somber. Ryan, is it true that you're leaving? Simon, a senior developer, approached me with a worried expression. I gave him a small nod. Immediately, the entire office buzzed with murmurs. What's going to happen to the development team without Ryan? What is Mr. Earn even thinking? I could hear whispers spreading around the office. Ryan, we'll talk to Mr. Earn on your behalf. Yeah, let's get everyone to sign a petition or something. If Ryan leaves, there's no future for this company. Their words filled my chest with warmth, but I shook my head. Thank you, everyone, but I've already made up my mind. Thanks to all of you. I've learned so much here. I'm truly grateful. A heavy silence filled the air. After a moment, Simon placed a hand on my shoulder. I see. I understand your resolve. It'll be lonely without you, but good luck, he said. Gradually, the other coworkers began to nod in agreement. I picked up my resignation letter from my desk and headed toward Kenneth's office. After knocking, I stepped inside to find Kenneth staring out the window. An oppressive silence filled the room. He slowly turned around but avoided meeting my gaze. What do you want? His voice was devoid of emotion. Carefully choosing my words, I responded calmly. My resignation. The sound of the paper hitting the desk broke the silence. Kenneth glanced at the letter but showed no reaction. Anything else? Kenneth asked in a matter-of-fact tone. No. He silently accepted my resignation letter and stamped it. In his actions, there was no longer any trace of emotion toward me. That concludes the procedure. I nodded silently. Goodbye. I turned to leave without looking back. As I stepped out of the office, I found my coworkers waiting for me. We exchanged farewell words, handshakes, and even a few hugs, saying our goodbyes with heavy hearts. After packing up my desk, I left the company. Standing at the entrance, the familiar scent of the office hit me one last time. Goodbye, I murmured quietly and walked away from K-Drive Engineering. A few days passed after submitting my resignation. I spent my time in my small apartment, searching for my next opportunity. One afternoon, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but I decided to answer. Hello, this is Ryan. Hello, Ryan. This is Olivia. I instinctively straightened up upon hearing her voice. Olivia? What can I do for you? I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, specifically about the new environmentally friendly engine concept you mentioned during a meeting. It's been on my mind ever since. You mean that meeting? I asked, surprised. Yes. I reached out to one of your former colleagues to get your contact information. I hope you don't mind me calling you like this. Not at all. I replied quickly, shaking my head even though she couldn't see me. I heard Olivia chuckle softly. Ryan, I can hear you shaking your head even over the phone, she said warmly. Embarrassed, I stammered. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it, she reassured me. So, Ryan, about that new technology, has there been any progress since then? I'd love to hear more details. Olivia spoke gently. Her words pulled me back to reality. Taking a deep breath, I resolved to explain the situation. Olivia, actually, I'm no longer with K-Drive Engineering. I was fired. So about that new technology, it's... I heard her gasp softly on the other end of the line, but she quickly regained her composure. I see. In that case, Ryan, I have a proposal for you, she said. A proposal? Yes. Why don't you come work for us? What? I could hardly believe my ears. Olivia continued in a cheerful voice. How about an annual salary of, let's say, $500,000? $500,000. A few days after Olivia's shocking offer, I found myself standing in front of the HD Corporation headquarters once again. This time, I was here to hear the details. Taking a deep breath, I walked confidently into the lobby. After getting my name at the reception, Olivia's secretary quickly appeared. Ryan, thank you for coming. Please follow me, the secretary said. I stepped into the elevator and rode to the top floor. When the doors opened, Olivia was there to greet me. Ryan, thank you for coming, she said, welcoming me with a radiant smile. Please, this way, she added, leading me into a spacious conference room. From the large windows, the city stretched out in a breathtaking view, and I couldn't help but gasp. What a stunning view, I remarked. Olivia smiled warmly. It is, isn't it? I love it too. We both settled into the soft, plush sofas, and Olivia's expression turned serious. Ryan, I'd like to get straight to the point today. I'd like you to take on the position of director of the newly established Environmental Technology Development Department, she said. I leaned forward, wide-eyed in surprise. Director? Yes, she confirmed. I've prepared an environment where you can fully unleash your innovative ideas, the latest equipment, a talented team, and a generous budget, all at your disposal. Olivia pulled out a tablet and displayed blueprints on the screen. This is the new research facility we've designed for you. It features state-of-the-art experimental equipment, 3D printers, and high-performance computer systems, all to bring your ideas to life. I couldn't suppress a gasp. What lay before me was a dream research facility. And here are the terms of your employment, she said, placing a document in front of me. In addition to the $500,000 salary, it included performance-based bonuses, stock options, and comprehensive benefits. The conditions were extraordinary. All of this is an investment in your talent, Ryan. Will you join us in shaping the future of the automotive industry? She asked, her earnest eyes locking onto mine. I was speechless. Inside, a mix of excitement and uncertainty swirled. Olivia, I'm incredibly grateful for such an amazing offer, but why are you willing to invest so much in me? Olivia fell silent for a moment at my question. Her expression softened as she looked at me with a nostalgic gaze. Taking a deep breath, she spoke quietly. Ryan, the truth is, meeting you has profoundly changed my life. Her words made me instinctively lean forward, eager to hear more. When I was young, I was always aware of my role as an heiress. My days were packed with schedules, piano lessons, tea ceremony, English classes, one after another. I hardly had any time to play with friends, and as a result, I never made any real friends. Olivia's voice carried a faint hint of sadness. In those times, my only solace was reading books. I especially loved science fiction and adventure stories, staying up late into the night absorbed in them. The worlds within those books became both a refuge from reality and a window to a future full of possibilities. Watching the protagonists overcome challenges and realize their dreams resonated deeply with me and gave me courage. Olivia's eyes gazed into the distance, a nostalgic smile appearing on her face. I found myself nodding unconsciously. I, too, had been saved by the world of books. The time I spent immersed in those imaginary worlds was when I was happiest. In those moments, I could forget my responsibilities as a young lady and the expectations placed on me. In the pages of those books, I was free to dream, to become a scientist changing the world with new technology or an astronaut exploring uncharted planets. Olivia continued, giving a slightly embarrassed laugh. Maybe they were childish dreams, but they were what fueled me. I listened intently, deeply resonating with her words. I, too, had experienced how dreams nurtured in books could become a driving force in the real world. Her words created an invisible bond between us. But whenever I talked about those dreams, My father would always scold me, saying, "Stop dreaming. Look at reality." He said it over and over. Olivia took a deep breath and closed her eyes as if recalling those moments. I could feel her pain so clearly that I clenched my fists without realizing it. But 3 years ago, at an automotive technology exhibition, I attended your lecture. The future you described was exactly like the world I had imagined in those books. Eco-friendly and high-performance engines. Everyone in the audience laughed, saying it was impossible. I was stunned. I never expected her to remember that event so vividly. But you didn't give up. Instead, their reactions seemed to ignite a fire within you, and you explained with even more passion. Watching you, I felt ashamed of my own weakness. At the same time, you gave me courage, she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. Her words filled my chest with warmth. I realized, that's right. I can't give up either. Just because I'm an heiress doesn't mean I have to suppress my dreams. If anything, I should use my position to pursue my beliefs more boldly and passionately. Olivia's words were powerful. I found myself nodding without thinking. Since that day, I've had the courage to stick to my convictions. Despite opposition from my superiors, I kept proposing ideas until I finally launched a project to develop eco-friendly products. That project's success is what led me to my current position, she explained. I was speechless. I never imagined my actions could have such a profound impact on someone's life. Overwhelmed with emotion, I quietly replied, "Olivia, I never realized you thought of me this way. Thank you so much." Olivia gave me a gentle smile. "Please, let me work for your company," I said with resolve. Olivia's face lit up with joy. "Of course, you can start tomorrow?" "Yes, absolutely." We exchanged a firm, enthusiastic handshake. A month had passed since I joined HE Corporation as the head of the new development division. I was leading the project to create the eco-friendly engine I had always dreamed of. Today was the budget meeting for the project. Feeling nervous, I entered the conference room where Olivia greeted me with a warm smile. "All right, Ryan, let's hear your proposed budget for the project," she said. Taking a deep breath, I opened the materials I had prepared. The listing included cutting-edge equipment and materials that I could only dream of back at Ken Drive Engineering due to budget constraints. First, we need a high-performance simulation system, nanomaterial analysis equipment, next-generation 3D printers, precision thermal fluid analysis software, and an environmental testing chamber. With these, we can create more precise prototypes and conduct tests under conditions that closely replicate real-world usage, I explained. When I finished, I anxiously waited for Olivia's reaction. A list of demands like this would typically be rejected outright, but Olivia's expression remained calm. "That's it. Anything else you need?" she asked. "Huh. But," I stammered. "Ryan," she said firmly, "we are investing in your potential. Whatever you need, we'll provide it. Don't hold back. Just tell me." Her words brought tears to my eyes. At Ken Drive Engineering, ideas were often blocked by budget constraints. But now, endless possibilities flooded into my mind. Then, could we also request a high-speed camera for combustion analysis and an exhaust gas analysis system? With these, we could optimize both engine efficiency and environmental performance simultaneously. And if possible, I'd like to ask for a dedicated test facility to thoroughly evaluate engine performance under various conditions. We'll need a spacious and well-equipped location. Olivia nodded firmly. "Of course. Let me know if there's anything else you need." By the time the meeting ended, my head was full of excitement and anticipation. Back at the office, as I sat at my desk, I let out a deep sigh of relief and joy. With this, it's possible my dream can come true here. I looked out the window. The environmentally friendly engine that was once laughed off as impossible. The path to realizing it was now unfolding before my eyes. Renewing my determination, I immediately began drafting the details of the development plan. 3 years passed. Development at HD Corporation was progressing smoothly, and I was fully immersed in the final adjustments for the next generation engine in the development department. Then, suddenly, a thunderous voice echoed across the office floor. "Where's President Mr. Hyde? Bring him out." The voice made my body tense up involuntarily. When I turned around, I saw two unexpected figures. It was Mr. Edwards, the president of our rival company, Echo Motors, and Kenneth. As the employees murmured among themselves, the doors to the development department opened, and Olivia appeared. "Apologies for keeping you waiting. I'm Olivia, the head of development at Hyde Corporation. I will be addressing you as a representative of Mr. Hyde." Olivia's voice was calm, but tension hung in the air. Mr. Edwards immediately raised his voice even further upon seeing Olivia. "Your company is a thief. You stole our technology." "What are you referring to?" "All of our technology is developed in-house." "Don't lie. How do you explain the striking similarity between our new engine under development and yours?" Mr. Edwards' face was twisted with anger, his voice shaking. He pulled out an envelope full of documents and slammed its contents onto the table in front of Olivia. "Look at this. These are the blueprints for our new engine, and here are the analysis results of your product. The structures are nearly identical." Olivia tried to maintain composure, but a flicker of unease crossed her face. Mr. Edwards, gaining momentum, continued. "We are in the process of applying for a patent for this technology. Your actions clearly constitute patent infringement." Kenneth stepped forward and added his voice. "Olivia, this is a serious matter that cannot be overlooked. Please provide an explanation." The office fell silent, with unease spreading across the faces of the employees. I stepped forward. "Excuse me. I'm Ryan, the head of the development department. May I take a look at the blueprints?" "Go ahead. Take a good look." With Mr. Edwards' permission, I picked up the blueprints. The moment I saw them, I felt the blood drain from my face. The blueprints before me were undeniably similar to our engine. No, more than that. They were almost identical. My mind went blank, and a cold sweat trickled down my back. This is indeed almost identical to our engine. I could hear my own voice trembling. The office erupted into murmurs at my words. I saw the color drain from Olivia's face as well. Mr. Edwards, looking triumphant, shouted, "See? Even your own engineer admits it. Should I leak this to the media? A HD Corporation technology theft scandal. What do you think will happen to your stock prices?" His angry voice reverberated through the room. The murmuring in the office didn't cease. Kenneth glared at me with his lips pressed into a thin line. Amidst the tension, Olivia's resolute voice rang out clearly. "Mr. Edwards, it's your company that will be facing a lawsuit." The office instantly fell silent as if doused with water, and Mr. Edwards was momentarily at a loss for words. Kenneth, too, stared at Olivia in surprise. Olivia continued. "This technology has already been patented by Ryan here, and the patent has been approved. Moreover, we have already completed its commercialization. Here is a copy of the patent application. Please check the filing date." She retrieved a set of documents from her desk drawer and spread them in front of Mr. Edwards and Kenneth. Both men stared at the papers in shock. Mr. Edwards' face turned pale, and his hands visibly trembled. He repeatedly examined the documents and then looked up, disbelief written all over his face. This can't be. No wonder our patent wasn't approved." His voice quivered. He suddenly turned toward Kenneth, his eyes filled with anger. "Kenneth, what is the meaning of this? You told me this engine was developed by your company." Mr. Edwards shouted, his voice escalating. Kenneth, caught off guard, glanced between Mr. Edwards, Olivia, and me, his expression confused. "Well, that's..." Before Kenneth could finish, I stepped forward. All eyes in the room turned to me. I took a deep breath and spoke calmly, but with conviction. That technology was indeed developed at Ken Drive Engineering. To be precise, it was in its early stages of development. I worked on it during my time at Ken Drive Engineering. What? Mr. Edwards raised an eyebrow. I nodded and continued. The basic concept was already established back then. However, there was a critical issue with durability. We couldn't overcome it because we lacked a decisive breakthrough. I gestured as I explained. To achieve a significant leap in engine efficiency, combustion at far higher temperatures than before was necessary. Theoretically, it was possible, but the materials to make it feasible didn't exist. Traditional materials degraded rapidly under such high temperatures, and we couldn't break through the durability barrier. What we needed was an entirely new nanostructured material controlled at the atomic level. I noticed Olivia nodding slightly in agreement. Feeling encouraged, I continued with more energy. I asked Olivia to establish a nanomaterials research facility at Bridge Corporation. What we developed there was a super heat-resistant nanostructured material. By combining quantum dots and carbon nanotubes, we created a new composite material. Applying it to the engine interior enabled stable combustion at ultra-high temperatures, something previously deemed impossible. With this groundbreaking material, engine durability improved dramatically, and harmful emissions were significantly reduced due to high-efficiency combustion. This is the secret behind the revolutionary performance of the BAR engine. Kenneth and Mr. Edwards stood frozen, stunned by the explanation. Their faces showed how overwhelmed they were by the depth and complexity of the technology. Olivia added a final note. Without Ryan's unique theories, this technology would have been impossible to realize. His insight and creativity were the driving forces behind the creation of this revolutionary engine. The room was utterly silent as everyone stared at me. I could sense their mix of astonishment, respect, and confusion in their gazes. I turned back to face Kenneth and Mr. Edwards directly. We have also secured related patents for this technology. In other words, full use of this technology requires our permission. So, if there is any infringement, it would be on your side. The color drained further from the faces of Mr. Edwards and Kenneth. But suddenly, Mr. Edwards' expression twisted. His face contorted in anger and humiliation as he turned sharply to Kenneth. You! How dare you deceive me? Wait! What do you mean? Kenneth stammered, his face pale as he looked at Mr. Edwards. I offered a hand to a struggling company like yours because I heard you had great technology. And this is how you betray me? Kenneth, our contract is terminated. All agreements are off the table. Kenneth's face went pale. He frantically grabbed at Mr. Edwards' sleeve. Please, wait, Mr. Edwards. You can't do that. If you pull something like this, my company will go bankrupt. Mr. Edwards sneered and shook off Kenneth's hand. What do you mean I can't do that? Who do you think bought your so-called technology for $100,000 and saved you? On top of that, I allowed your factory to produce our products and even bought them back at 80% of the production cost. Do you really think you're in any position to complain? The room erupted into whispers. $100,000 for advanced automotive technology was an unthinkably low price. Moreover, in manufacturing, products are typically sold at a price that includes a profit margin on top of production costs. Buying at 80% of the production cost meant that Kenneth's company was operating at a loss with every product made. Kenneth slumped his shoulders, utterly speechless. I felt my body tremble with a mix of shock and anger. A former friend of mine, forced into such terrible conditions. I stepped forward. I glared at the man before me, my gaze filled with all the anger I could muster. Mr. Edwards, do you even understand what you've just done? My voice was low and sharp. Mr. Edwards frowned. What's that? Just another employee daring to speak out. This company clearly doesn't know how to educate its people. He spat the words with an air of condescension, maintaining his arrogant demeanor. I took another step forward, putting weight into my voice. This isn't about education. It's about morality. Mr. Edwards scoffed. Morality? Don't make me laugh. Business has no room for sentimentality. Results are all that matter. My voice rose slightly. Results? By stealing other companies' technologies and exploiting weaker businesses. Are those the results you're after? Shut up. Mr. Edwards raised his voice angrily. What would you know? This is the norm in our industry. He sneered and spoke with mockery. You've got a big mouth for someone so young. What do you know? Surviving in this industry isn't about pretty ideals. It's survival of the fittest. That's the real truth of this world. Technology? You can buy it or steal it. Sitting on top of someone else's hard work and making it your own. That's what true talent is. You, with your dreams and ideals, make me sick. Just hearing you talk about that nonsense makes me want to throw up. Money is everything. With money, you can buy the law, people, whatever you want. That's how I got to where I am today. You're on a completely different level than me. Understand. This is what the adult world looks like. Not that you'd ever comprehend. Mr. Edwards continued, his tone filled with excitement. And your friend here? What about him? He cast a contemptuous glance at Kenneth, who stood beside him. Look at this pathetic guy. Do you know what he did? He got on his hands and knees, begging me, please help us. My employees will end up on the streets. Mr. Edwards laughed cruelly. To think he had the nerve to pull such a shameless stunt in front of a top-tier company's president. But hey, guys like him are easy to handle, obedient, and cheap to use. He should be thanking me for saving his sorry excuse of a company instead of complaining. As his words ended, a suffocating tension filled the room. Kenneth's face turned bright red as he trembled with a mix of shame and anger. You, how dare you talk about Kenneth like that? I clenched my fists tightly, my teeth grinding in fury. Mr. Edwards sneered again, clearly enjoying himself. Oh my, how scary. As expected from H Corporation, lousy employee training all around. That's why second-rate companies err. I took another step forward, glaring daggers at him. Do you even realize what you've just admitted to? What? What are you talking about? You've just confessed to engaging in illegal activities. Mr. Edwards' face twisted in shock. What illegal activities? I began counting off, folding my fingers as I listed his wrongdoings. My voice was cold and filled with anger. First, abuse of superior bargaining position. This is a violation of antitrust laws. Second, unfairly low purchase prices for technology. This could constitute fraud. Third, forcing production at below-cost rates. This is a violation of subcontracting laws. And above all, your actions have pushed your business partner to the brink of bankruptcy. This could even fall under criminal obstruction of business. Mr. Edwards' face grew increasingly pale. You've just confessed to multiple crimes. This room is full of witnesses. There's no escape. But what's truly unforgivable is the way you've insulted my friend. Prepare yourself. Mr. Edwards tried to stammer a rebuttal, his voice trembling. Oh, and let's not forget something else, I continued. The technical materials you brought here, those were based on technology you unjustly acquired from Kenneth's company, weren't they? So not only did you steal someone else's work, but you also attempted to sue us, the rightful developers of this technology. The blood drained from Mr. Edwards' face. But he still refused to give up. He suddenly raised his voice, desperately trying to resist. Nonsense. You have no proof. No one will believe your claims. He stood abruptly and bolted toward the door. But Olivia's calm voice cut through the tension. Mr. Edwards, everything has been recorded. In fact, rumors of your fraudulent dealings have long circulated within the industry. That's why we've always been cautious, ensuring to record important conversations. She pulled out her phone and held the screen toward Mr. Edwards. Furthermore, we've gathered testimonies from former Echo Motors employees. As you're well aware, the automotive industry is smaller than it seems. Over the past few months, multiple former employees of your company have come forward as whistleblowers, providing detailed testimonies and documentation of your illegal activities. Mr. Edwards stared at the screen, horrified. The display listed an overwhelming amount of evidence against him. He looked around the room in panic, his gaze landing on Kenneth as if pleading for help. Kenneth, you understand, don't you? I did all this for you, to save your company. But Kenneth met his gaze with cold, unwavering eyes. Mr. Edwards made one last attempt at resistance. This is all a misunderstanding. If we talk it out, I'm sure we can resolve it. Yes, let's settle this out of court. I'll pay whatever it takes, just... I cut him off with a cold, firm voice. You think money can fix this? Your crimes are far too severe. Finally, all the color drained from Mr. Edwards' face. He collapsed to the floor, trembling uncontrollably. Fine, fine. I surrender. I'll do anything. Just please. Mr. Edwards spoke in a strained, barely audible voice. I looked at Olivia. She gave a small nod and stepped forward. Mr. Edwards, your actions are utterly unforgivable. For someone working in the same industry, we've already contacted the authorities, so I suggest you quietly accept the consequences of your crime. At that moment, security personnel entered the room and detained Mr. Edwards. He stumbled weakly as they escorted him away. A heavy silence filled the room. Kenneth slowly turned to face me, his shoulders sagged, and his eyes were filled with fatigue and regret. You must be laughing at me, Ryan. His voice was hollow. I said nothing, just stared at him. Lowering his gaze, Kenneth continued, After you left, things were really tough. The company's performance kept declining. No new technologies were developed. We hit rock bottom. That's when Echo Motors extended a hand to us. Sure, I'd heard bad things about them, but they came to us with sweet promises. We'll provide funding. Let's work on a technical partnership. He let out a heavy sigh. We didn't have any other choice. To keep the company alive, we had to cling to their words. Looking back now, it was a stupid decision, but back then, it felt like our only option. Kenneth paused, taking a deep breath. His eyes reflected deep regret. Ryan, after you left, I finally realized how much I relied on you. It wasn't just about the technology. You were my anchor. No matter how tough the problem, as long as you were there, I felt like we could overcome it. Having someone to talk to. It's something I only realized the value of after I lost it. That's why I wanted so badly to complete your engine. Even though I knew it was impossible, it felt like the last thread connecting us. He let out a bitter laugh. I accepted Echo Motors' offer because I wanted the funds to finish your engine. Kenneth covered his face with his hands. What an idiot I've been. I thought I was protecting your dream, but in the end, I betrayed it. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to protect my employees too. His voice trembled, remorse and regret evident in every word he spoke. In the end, I was the one clinging to your dream. I'm sorry. I don't know how I can ever make this right. Tears glimmered faintly in his eyes. I paused for a moment, letting Kenneth's words sink in. Then, quietly but firmly, I replied, That's okay, Kenneth. Kenneth looked up, startled. I smiled and continued, Clinging to a dream isn't a bad thing. In fact, that's what has driven us forward all this time. I'm grateful that you never let go of that dream. I placed a hand on Kenneth's shoulder. It only felt like the dream had disappeared because we were apart. But look around. You and I are together again. That means the dream is still alive. Let's chase it together from here on out. A spark of hope returned to Kenneth's eyes. At that moment, an idea came to me. Kenneth, how about this? HD Corporation and K-Drive Engineering could form a technical partnership. Your company's engineers could work on developing peripheral technologies for my new engine. That would give your company a unique strength. Plus, we can delegate part of HGG Corporation's production line to your company. That way, your factory's equipment would be put to good use. And of course, we'd ensure fair pricing. Olivia interjected from the side, "That's an excellent idea. Expanding production capacity has been one of our challenges, so it would be a perfect solution. Besides, your company's technical team has a great reputation. It's a win-win for us." Kenneth looked stunned. "But is that really possible?" "It is. Your company's technical capabilities are the real deal. I can vouch for that. With fair recognition and opportunities, your team will shine. More importantly, this proposal also carries my gratitude. If it weren't for you sending me for training, investing in me, I wouldn't be where I am today." Tears welled up in Kenneth's eyes. I gave his shoulder a reassuring pat. "Let's start running toward that dream again, Kenneth." Hearing those words, large tears began to fall from Kenneth's eyes. He covered his face with his hands and began to sob, his shoulders trembling. It wasn't the restrained tears of a grown man, but the raw, uninhibited crying of someone releasing years of pent-up emotions, like a child letting go. Olivia and I silently placed our hands on his back. "I'm sorry for showing you such a pathetic side of me, but we understand. It's all over now. It's time to move forward, Kenneth. Your passion and skills can help so many people. Let's create a new future together." At our words, Kenneth slowly raised his head. His tear-streaked face held a mix of embarrassment, gratitude, and determination. "Thank you. Truly, thank you." He exhaled deeply. The three of us exchanged looks and nodded quietly. 3 years passed. Standing in the executive conference room on the top floor of HD Corporation, I'd gaze out the window. Beyond the glass stood a newly constructed research facility. On its rooftop shone a sign that read, K-Drive, HD Joint Research Center. "Ryan, take a look at this," Olivia said behind me, holding out some documents with a bright smile. It was the latest performance report. As I looked at it, my eyes widened in surprise. This is incredible. Sales are up 150% from last year, and the profit margin has increased too. It's all thanks to the new engine you developed. Its environmental performance has been highly praised, and we're getting flooded with orders from major automakers. Olivia nodded happily as she spoke. At that moment, the conference room door opened, and Kenneth walked in. "Ah, Olivia is here too. Perfect timing. I have good news. The new lightweight material we've been developing at my company is finally ready for practical application. With it, your engine will perform even better." "Kenneth, that's amazing." Excitement filled my voice as I praised Kenneth's confident announcement. Olivia beamed with a broad smile as well. Kenneth's expression then turned slightly serious. Looking out the window, he spoke softly. "By the way, about Echo Motors. It seems that company has finally gone bankrupt." "Yeah, ever since that day, the authorities have been investigating them. It wasn't just about stealing technology. They uncovered tax evasion, falsified contracts, and even the employment of industrial spies. One crime after another came to light," I added. Olivia furrowed her brows. To think they were doing all that, it's truly despicable. Kenneth gave a wry smile. "Yeah, Mr. Edwards' ruthless methods rotted the company to its core. Employees started whistleblowing one after another. There was no saving it. In the end, crime doesn't pay." "Exactly. But with this chapter closed, it gives us momentum for our new ventures. Let's face the industry head-on as honest leaders." Kenneth looked at us and gave a small smile in response. Olivia and I nodded firmly at him. As the workday came to an end and the evening set in, the three of us headed to a small bar near the office. Walking into the cozy, old-fashioned interior, a nostalgic aroma filled the air. I glanced at Kenneth with a knowing look and said, "We used to come here a lot, didn't we?" "Yeah, it was our go-to spot back in the day," Kenneth said, smiling nostalgically. Olivia glanced around the restaurant with interest. "It has such a charming vibe. I can see how it holds your youthful memories." The three of us sat at a small table and ordered draft beers. Cheers. The clink of glasses resonated warmly. After taking the first sip, Kenneth began speaking with a nostalgic smile. "Do you remember, Ryan? We celebrated our first successful business deal here. Yeah, we got carried away and drank until morning back then." Kenneth and I exchanged glances and laughed as we reminisced about the past. There were stories of failures and tales of success. Laughter filled the air, and sometimes the mood turned poignant. Olivia listened to our stories with a bright, engaged expression. As the drinks started to take effect, Kenneth, his face red from alcohol, turned to me. "By the way, Ryan, what's going on with you and Olivia?" "What? What do you mean?" My voice shot up in surprise. Kenneth grinned mischievously and pressed on. "I think you two make a great couple. Both single, perfectly in sync at work. What's stopping you?" "Hey, Kenneth." I tried to stop him in a flustered tone, but before I could say more, Olivia, her cheeks faintly flushed, spoke softly. "I've always admired you, Ryan, but it's not just that. Your passion, kindness, and strength. When I'm with you, I feel like I can be stronger too, so it's not that I wouldn't mind. It's more like—" She took a deep breath, gathering her courage, and looked straight into my eyes. "I love you, Ryan." Her words made my heart leap wildly as my mind went blank. The words spilled out of me. I've always thought of you as more than just a colleague too. But can someone like me be good enough? I'm always chasing dreams, getting so caught up in technology that I lose sight of everything else. Olivia smiled gently. "It's because of those qualities that I love you." Our eyes met, and time seemed to stand still. My heart raced, but it was a pleasant, exhilarating feeling. Suddenly, Kenneth's booming voice broke the moment. "All right. This calls for a celebration. A toast to the start of something new for you two." With a beaming smile, he raised his glass high. Olivia and I, though slightly embarrassed, clinked our glasses together. The sound of the three glasses meeting felt like it marked the beginning of a new chapter of happiness. My passion had moved the hearts of both Olivia and Kenneth, ultimately leading to the creation of groundbreaking technology. This wasn't just a commercial success. It was technology that improved people's lives and cared for the environment. That, to me, is the true definition of success. But none of it could have been achieved alone. It was only through the support of my teammates that this dream became a reality. Cherishing those around you and leveraging each other's strengths is what truly matters. Holding on to passion and refusing to give up has the power to improve not only your own life, but also the lives of those around you. So no matter how much others laugh at you or how often you're told it's impossible, you must never give up on the path you believe in.